This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Did the Ninth Circuit, the liberal, hard-left Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, just deal a death blow to gun banners this week? Two different panels of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals have written opinions that provide not only an understanding, proper understanding from the perspective of me, of the right to keep bear arms, but also a proper roadmap for effective constitutional gun control. The case that was decided yesterday, earlier this week, one case struck down the state of Hawaii's ban on openly carrying weapons outside the home. In other words, the right to bear arms includes the right to carry a weapon to defend yourself outside of the home. The Ninth Circuit saying this. Oh, boy. Don't tell those kids at Parkland. John Lott Jr., president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, author of the books War on Guns and More Guns, Less Crime, joins us now for more analysis. John, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Oh, good morning.
John?
Hello?
Oh, yeah, John, you're. Can we hear you there, John?
I hear you. I don't know. You can hear me.
Okay, there we go. It's a little bit better. So, am I right to be positively aghast at this? But aghast positively as well at this Ninth Circuit ruling.
Well, I mean, obviously the circuit as a whole is extremely liberal. There's about 2/3 of Democrats, but two of the people who
John, I think we're
having
having trouble hearing you. I don't know if you're on a cell or you're in a bad zone, but we're or Tiny Dancer is
blocking our signal,
electromagnetically pulsing you or something. John, are you there?
I think so.
Okay,
that's
now
much better.
that's better. Okay, all right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Anyway, while the Ninth Circuit as a whole is very liberal, they did get 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat on this one panel. And that's happened before. The issue is whether they're going to appeal this to what's called an en banc decision, where the entire Ninth Circuit would vote, and then you'd get, the impact of the very liberal court on there. I think it's a big decision, though. And the reason is that I think either this case would ultimately go to the Supreme Court, or the gun control advocates would just kind of accept their loss here in order to try to avoid it going to the Supreme Court. And it would affect the Ninth Circuit, which is pretty big. I mean, obviously California's gun laws would be impacted, as well as Hawaii. But it would then create conflict between the different circuits, and that would mean other cases in the future would be more likely to go to the Supreme Court.
So we could have open carry in Illinois in the not too distant future.
Right. I think we're maybe talking about 4 or 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not even sure it's open carry that would you be allowed, because the reason why you have concealed carry in Illinois is you had Judge Posner, I guess in like 2012, said, look, you have to be able to let people carry somehow. When bear means to carry, as you said earlier, and you can't ban them completely carrying open and completely carrying concealed. You have to let them do it one way or the other. And Posner basically picked concealed for them. And that's kind of the dilemma that the California legislature and Hawaii, because there you have very liberal places. And my guess is they'd rather have people carry concealed than carried openly.
How did this?
And so you may actually see those legislatures, in order to keep a ban on open carry, loosen up their rules to make it so that people can carry concealed more easily.
But doesn't each city or state have a right to impose their own rules on this? Or since it's federal, it would wipe that out?
Well, I mean, they can have some rules, like obviously Illinois now has concealed carry, but it's fairly restrictive. It costs like $450 or so to go through the process to get a concealed carry permit in Illinois. If you look at Indiana next door, it costs about $47 to go and get a permit for 5 years. So, I mean, that's just an example of the types of differences that are there. And they'll pick, I assume, very restrictive rules in terms of the costs and other things for people to get through, but still they will lose their discretion on who gets a permit. If you're a law-abiding citizen and you meet whatever requirements that they put down there, pay the fees. In Illinois, it takes 16 hours of training to get a permit. But once you've met those criteria, then you'll be able to get a permit. The problem that you have right now in places like Hawaii and in California is that in order to get a permit to carry either openly or concealed, you have to demonstrate that you have a need. And Hawaii, they say you have to demonstrate that you're in sufficient fear for your safety. Well, the thing is, Hawaii isn't granting any permits to anybody. Nobody's been able to prove that they have sufficient fear to the local authorities there to be able to be granted a permit. There's no woman who's being stalked. There's no person who may be getting threats that's been able to convince the Honolulu police or anybody else to be able to go and grant them a permit. And the court said, that just can't be. You have to have some objective rules in terms of who can get a permit to carry.
Right, and there's also an important pronouncement in these opinions about gun control, and that essentially the form of gun control that is best designed to preserve public safety while also respecting constitutional rights is gun control that is individualized and evidence-based, based on the user, right, not based on the weapon. This is important when you with some of the kind of increasing popularity of red flag laws, depending on how they are worded specifically and implemented. So gun violence restraining orders that the NRA has endorsed, that David French has endorsed, again, like a surety law, a limitation comes after specific complaint and the presentation of evidence. It's not sort of somebody thinks you may be a threat, so they can strip you of your gun rights sorts of things. And so I thought this delineation by the Ninth Circuit on the sorts of gun control that could be advanced in terms of public safety, but also need to be respectful of individual constitutional rights was important.
No, I agree with you. Look, I mean, this whole thing about red flag laws, I have problems with, and that is, they say, well, if somebody's really a danger to somebody else, then we're going to ban them from being able to legally have a gun. If you really believe that somebody is a danger, again, given the types of evidentiary rules that you're talking about there, if you really believe somebody's a danger, then you should consider committing them in some way. Because simply saying that you're not going to be able to legally buy a gun isn't really the way to stop them from doing anything. I mean,
right.
I'll give you an example. When I go and give talks at college campuses, I'll many times ask students, if I gave them a couple days, would they be able to buy illegal drugs? And you'll get 80% of the students will raise their hand saying, sure, they'll be able to do that. The thing is, the same people who sell drugs have guns to protect their valuable property. It's the drug dealers not only sell illegal drugs, but they sell guns. And the notion that you're going to be able to stop somebody from illegally obtaining a weapon is, just because you say they can't legally get one, is just not serious. And then presumably once a person's cured, then you wouldn't have to worry about taking away their weapons there. But it's just this focus on guns rather than the focus on the violence that they're so obsessed with. Why not take away the person's car also, or any other thing that they might do? But no, they just want to focus solely on legally obtained guns.
Yeah.
And
recently, that
not
shooting,
a serious response.
that terrorist attack in Toronto, the first thing the mayor did was We have too many guns on the street. That was the first thing they
Well,
said. Not saying that we have a problem with terrorists who are here, who want to kill our Canadian citizens. They blame the gun.
Well, in Canada, it's very difficult to get a handgun.
Oh, really?
You have to go and get a license to be able to get it. And in Ontario, they just don't really give out. I mean, Ontario, for giving out handgun licenses, is like Hawaii giving out licenses to be able to go and carry. So, the issue that you have there is here you have a guy who illegally obtained a gun. The drug gangs in Canada have handguns. The only thing I can say is, fortunately, Canada doesn't have as bad of a drug gang problem as we have here in the United States, or they have a lot more violence. Few people seem to appreciate how much violence and murder. I mean, you in Chicago know this, how much is associated with drug gang violence that you have.
Well,
and, it's just hard. You're no more likely to stop drug gangs from getting a hold of guns than you've been able to stop them from getting a hold of illegal drugs to sell.
Well, it's going to be really interesting to see if any Democrat senators take up the Ninth Circuit holdings here when it comes to Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing. John Lott Jr., president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, author of books, The War on Guns, More Guns, Less Crime. John, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Great talking to you. Thanks.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.